There is a funny story that a priest always tells us when we go to church. And it's about a family, a poor family, who had only as a resource a cow. So this was their only resource. And in a day, God killed the cow. And then the man from the family was very, very angry because he hadn't he didn't have any resource to something to eat or something like that. And he asked God, why did you kill the cow? And God said, well, it was either the cow, either your wife. And then the man simply understood that because, yeah, God said it, so it should be good. And that's exactly what the proposition is trying to argue today. That the people that believe in religion have no right to critical thinking, have no right to judge things, and they didn't do that in the past, and that's exactly why today we have more disadvantages regarding religion than advantages. Now I will have, no thank you, I will have two major points. First I'm going to talk about critical thinking and how religion actually prohibits that. And secondly I'm going to talk about the actual harms, no thank you, and I will mainly focus on three main things here at the point of the harms. Firstly, on stopping development, secondly, on inconsistency, and thirdly, on discrimination. So, going back to my first point, and this is critical thinking. No, thank you. Well, we think that religion is inherently against rationality. We think that it's something that religion prohibits. Well, what exactly all religions do? Well, they provide you with a certain set of values, right? And they said, no, thank you. This is something good and this is something bad. The reason doesn't matter. You don't have to know why this is good or why this is bad. You just have to know that if you do the bad things, then you go to hell. If you do the good things, then you go to heaven. And there is no middle ground. There is no way in which you can criticize. I'll take you in a second, miss. There is no way in which you can criticize religion, and this is exactly a major problem. But before I move on,
can you please prove to us that that would not have been the case if religion never existed?
Thank you. Well, we do believe that man can develop their own certain values. We do believe that men are, biologically speaking, have the biological ability to develop moral values and to actually judge if something is good or bad without actually having a religion. Now, going back to my point. Well, you are not allowed to think and judge by yourself. You are obedient because otherwise you go to hell. You can justify a lot of things with the phrase, well, it's in the name of God. And this is something that you have to remember all your life because it's something that is really, really useful. And we think that this is extremely bad because it stops the individual from actually thinking, from actually analyzing things and making rational decisions upon, no, thank you, his own analysis. This is something that we don't really want to promote in our society. We don't want obedient individuals who are not able to judge. Now going to my second point, and this is the harms. No, thank you. Well, first I'm going to talk about stopping development, and here I have two sub-points. Firstly, individually, and we see that you don't have to be really too ambitious because God hates competition, right? You don't want to compete with God, and you don't want to be really, really ambitious. No, thank you. You have to be modest, you have to be obedient, you have to stay at your place. And we can see that, for instance, from Maria Theresa's rhetoric. We can see that Maria Teresa didn't, when she tried to help the poor people, she didn't try to, I don't know, give them money or do something for them in order for them to evolve. She tried to make them understand that that was their place, that they have to be poor. And that's exactly what God thinks, that they have to be poor, and that's I don't know, no, thank you, that's their destiny. So we don't really encourage progress individually. No, thank you. But moreover, we don't really encourage, the religion doesn't encourage progress as a society. And we see that throughout history. We see that, for instance, in the Inquisition. We see that all the greatest men, for instance, Galileo Galilei, who tried to actually make a progress, who tried to actually discover something, were condemned by the Inquisition, were condemned by religion, were condemned by the church. And the church always stopped progress. No, thank you. Always stopped progress and was always against such things. And this is extremely bad for the human society, and this is extremely bad for the humankind as a whole, because we have this institution who stops us from progressing without having an actual reasons, without giving us why. Now going to my second point in this argument, and this is inconsistency. Well, what basically religion tells us is, well, it's not okay to kill, but it's really extremely okay to kill in the name of God. It's something that we really agree with. Yes, sir.
That is factually incorrect. All religions do not promote killing in the name of God.
Thank you. Well, we do think that it's factually correct because we've seen it in history, and we've seen it because of the fact that God is always an excuse. No, thank you. Religion tells you that whatever you do, God is here and God forgives you. And because this God is absolutely good, because this God cannot be criticized, however, if whatever his name is, Allah or whatever, he cannot be criticized. And we see how everything that you do in his name, you consider it as being good. And we've seen thousands of people dying in crusade, in jihad, and in other wars because of the fact that they fought, that they are fighting in the name of God. And they actually thought that these crimes were okay just because were in the name of God. And we've seen it in history, we've seen victims due to religion. But going to the last point of this argument, and this is discrimination. And we have discrimination at two main levels. Firstly, against the sinners, and secondly, against other religions. Now, against the sinners, we see how all the people who don't really obey the law of God are called sinners and are actually excluded from the society. We see how, for instance, in America, we had a priest who killed a doctor just because of the fact that the doctor was making abortions. And we see how this is extremely bad. They're actually taking this whole thing with religion at a huge level, with that has extremely bad disadvantages. And the major impact in this point is against other religion, the discrimination against other religion. Because we've seen a lot of examples, such for instance in Nigeria, where the military court there actually said that Christians won't have peace unless they find their true religion. We see how all religions are discriminatory against each other, and therefore we have a lot of discriminatory politics against Muslims or against Christians in different parts of the world. We have Andres Breivik in Norway, who actually did commit an attack because of this, and we have a lot of crimes due to the fact that they can find the justification in religion. So because of the fact that we do have more harms than good in today's society because of religion, please vote for side proposition.
Thou shalt not kill. Where did we learn this? On the one hand, we have a man without morals. On the other hand, we have the civilized man, a learned man. One thinks he can do anything he wants and does not obey anything, only himself. The other one knows respect and understands his peers. This is what religion is about. First of all, we would like to put some burdens of proof on the proposition. They have to show that the harms that proposition claims to be caused by religion are not caused by misrepresentation of religion. Secondly, the good brought by religion is outweighed by the harms caused by it. They have to prove this. Our team line is that religion has done more good than bad. We have two arguments in our case. First of all, I will talk about the creation and promotion of civilization by religion. No, thank you. Secondly, my colleague will talk about religion as a provider of faith and answers and belonging. But first of all, I will go into some rebuttal. The proposition team has talked about that religion does give no right to critical thinking. But ladies and gentlemen, people have themselves developed religion, so they have themselves adopted these rules, these morals to follow. And also, we have many different examples of how critical thinking, no thank you, is not let pass. Because we have, for example, in the justice systems, we are also bound by morals and etc. by the laws we have, and we are not able to. No, thank you. We are not supposed to break these, and therefore, are we supposed to abolish laws if we are supposed to abolish religion because it gives some morals to be followed for the people? No, thank you. And also, before religion came, did we have anything that stopped us from equaling might to right and thinking that we can do whatever we want? No, thank you. So over to my first argument. No, thank you. Creation and promotion of civilization by religion. So, how did people live before religion came into place? They lived like cavemen. They equaled might to right. They lived like Neanderthalians. And they had no laws, no morals. This, in turn, resulted in injustice. I'll take you in a second. This resulted in slavery, which was present, which has been de-developed by religion. Also, for example, in the Arab Peninsula, before the Islamist faith came there, babies were being burned alive, and there were practically no morals against this. So people were not respecting each other's lives. Yes?
They would have you believe that the only thing that keeps us from being murderers, rapists, and thieves is the fear of hell. That's not a real story.
I am not talking about the fear of hell. I am talking about how religion promotes different moral values, such as the Ten Commandments.
Sir.
The Ten Commandments that promotes us to do good and not bad. Yes.
The same religion, in the name of Inquisition, for instance, killed and burned thousands of men because they were sinners.
Well, this is because people have, because people have not really understood religion. I mean, they have not, in your case yourselves, you contradicted that God forgives you for sinning. And then you said that if you don't obey God, you're a sinner and you will be burned. God promotes to do good, and this is the highest point the religion makes. Then, if there are some examples of where this leads to bad, so be it. But the good is greater. So to go on, the religion resulted being devoid of religion resulted in injustice, and religion thereafter created morals and, in extension, legal systems to stop this, to create understanding and respect. This is shown, for example, by the 10 Commandments in Christianity. You should not rape, you should not kill, etc. Furthermore, the religion promotes knowledge to fight ignorance. Through religion, for example, in the Islamistic religion, reading was promoted. In fact, the first time that God talked to the prophet, he said that people should learn to read. Therefore, knowledge has been drawn further thanks to religion, and ignorance has been more and more extinguished. This is also shown by the explanation of science in religion. For example, the explanation of the solar system. In the Quran, it is brought up. People learn this, and it is promoted further. Therefore, religion creates knowledge. Also, donations. Religion helps people. I mean, it promotes altruism. Jesus on the cross is a great example of this, because he died for the sins of many other people. This shows altruism. And this is why we think that religion does more good than bad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's now my pleasure to invite Sanu to present the second affirmative. Okay. You haven't really completed the 10 minutes, I promise.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. We'll try and keep it to 4. One of us is being told. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, if you don't agree with us, we have this special place that's full of fire and brimstone and smoke where we're going to put you. And there you're going to be tortured, and you're going to scream and cry forever and ever and ever till the end of time. Now, please, exercise critical thinking. Tell us how we're wrong. This is what religion is inherently all about. It's about obedience. It's about listening to your priest, imam, or rabbi without questioning. So I'm going to have 4 main constructive points in this debate. First of all, about this idea of critical thinking and obedience. Second of all, about the individual harms, both on the moral and the material part of the question. Third of all, about holy wars of discrimination, or how society and international society is incompatible or made worse off by the existence of religion. And fourth of all, my own argument, the chances of exit, or how there's a very hard, it's very, very hard to actually lash out or become an atheist or an agnostic or someone who does not necessarily agree with religion in many contexts. But first of all, some rebuttal. Now, they told us a couple of very, well, I would say hilarious things in their own constructive. Like, first of all, they had this idea of morals. And what they were implying is that humans are inherently immoral, evil, rapists, and they need, well, some kind of a huge fear and force that would keep them in check, without really understanding that everything that religion kind of tells you is inherently human. Like, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not rape thy mother. Gee, Captain Obvious, we kind of believe that people are emotionally against thievery, murdering, and stealing, and all that. But we say that people have biologically evolved to be like that. Just think of it. Like the tribe, the Bronze Age tribe that had no religion inherently hated murderers because, well, it made them feel bad if they attacked them. They hated thieves because they stole their food. So they expelled the thieves from their tribe. They expelled the murderers. Don't harass me, sir. They expelled the murderers from their tribe. Guess what? Those murderers did not end up having children, and the only people who did end up having children were the people who inherently expelled murderers, thieves from their tribe. So we're inherently emotionally moral. And we say that it's really, really degrading to think about people as rapists that are just kept in check through the power of sheer force. Second of all, they told us this idea that, oh, we have a lot of misrepresentation of religion. But we say that religion is inherently misrepresented, right? Like 10 years ago, the Pope just declared that, you know, in the Catholic religion, you no longer have libido, right? That was the place where the unbaptized children would go, in case you're not familiar with that. They just said, well, we just figured out that no longer exists, right? And you have a lot of contradictions in the Holy Text and in the Holy Bible, like in the Quran, the New and the Old Testament. And we say that because of this, you have inherent contradiction and inherent huge room for interpretation, right? In the Jewish communities, you have people like the Talmudic people who all they do all their lives is interpret religion and find out what it actually means. And we say that because religion is inherently interpretable, any misrepresentation is, well, the fault of religion for not being clear enough to really tell you what you should do if they really want to talk about that. And on the last idea, which was really the most hilarious, the one of religion promoting knowledge. I say that religion might promote some knowledge, but they only promote the knowledge that they agree to. They only promote the knowledge that they want you to learn, so they kind of hide all the other texts and burn you on the stake if you want, well, in the Middle Ages, burn you on the stake if you want to uphold the hidden texts. So they don't promote knowledge per se. Now going on to this idea, to my own case. Now they've grossly conceded a lot of matter, the one of critical thinking. They told us, well, yeah, well, you know, critical thinking doesn't exist in religion, but then again, it doesn't exist in things like laws and all that stuff. We say that's inherently false, right? In religion, you have to agree with what the Pope tells you, right? Whereas in laws, you should vote, you can vote, you have people in parliament, and you can criticize what happens there. But second of all, what they actually totally ignored was this idea of individual harms. This idea of, first of all, that you are forced to accept as true all the morality that comes from your religion. And we have a lot of problems with that. For instance, what about discrimination? What about the fact that religion considers gay people as being diseased and abnormal, whereas it does not let you actually decide for yourself. But second of all, you have this idea of acceptance and blaming God. We've told you that a poor person is told by his priest or pastor not to be not to be sad, not to be ambitious, just accept his place in life. Just, you know, try to slog through this life, maybe in the afterlife things are going to be better. And we have a huge problem with this. We want people to be outraged if they're poor, because that makes them fight for themselves and become better people, bettering their lives. Yes, sir.
Are you referring only to monotheistic, the three monotheistic sibling religions? Or are you talking also about Hinduism, Buddhism, ancient other cultures, or Babylonian
any
religions?
kind of religion. We've even provided you the examples in which the first hugely Hindu extremist government enacted the first anti-Muslim massacre in India, right? Any idea of enforcing values is wrong. That's what we've told you. And this nicely brings me into my third point, that of social and international incoherence. Because we say that when in Pakistan, when the governor in Punjab says something like, hey, maybe it's kind of too drastic to kill people that are declared to be apostates or heretics, his own bodyguard assassinates him, right? Because they are inherently intolerant of people who do not agree with them. We say that, for instance, in Algeria, a big reason for which the extremist Muslim communities did not actually have power is that, well, a huge number of them disagreed with what other Muslims considered that the Quran was, then they declared themselves heretics and started killing themselves. And this inherent intolerance matters because it creates a lot of conflicts that otherwise would not exist. So going on to this last idea of chances of exit, we say that the religion is inherently bad not only because of what it actually promotes and gives you. It's also very bad because the chances of exit are very small. Because when you live in a community that is inherently religious, people are going to exclude you from it when you renounce religion. We see that a lot of people are forced to believe in religion because of social pressures, because of the things that happened, for instance, in Pakistan with the assassination of the Punjabi governor. And we see that this reign of terror doesn't happen only at an ideological level, but as a social level as well. And even if you might convince yourself about abstract ideas, you might love your friends. And therefore, you're still forced to obey the same kind of rules that they do. You're still forced to renounce your critical thinking and, dabble in this mythical religion.
Right, it's now my pleasure to invite Walter, I'm sorry if that's mispronounced, and second first, That's a Christian act, returning his property.
Thou shalt not steal. It doesn't matter. I don't believe in God, but I do believe in religion as it had been a force for good more than a force for harm in our history. And that is what this debate is about. Not only about the status quo, but about what religion did for people thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, and tens of years ago. What we have seen from the proposition case is basically saying that God is evil. We are not discussing the existence or non-existence of God. We're discussing whether religion as such can be a force for good or has it been so. We proudly believe that it has been. Now, before I go into my substantive point, which is the point of religion as provider of faith and answers for mankind, I will try to offer some rebuttal from some of the points the proposition brought up. First of all, I would like to offer some clarification. We are not only talking about religion as monotheistic, three siblings religion of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, which is the most of all that they provide us with examples with. Because in, for example, Hinduism and Buddhism, there is no God. And they talk about damnation from God in religions that doesn't have a God. We believe that religion can be without a God. We believe that religion can therefore be a force for good and has been so historically. Now, they talked about the family cow. They talked about how God killed their cow and how the person was supposed to accept that the cow died. Well, before, if the cow had died and he had no religion at all, what was he supposed to do? He was supposed to just put blame on himself and curse his faith, and then he would have to accept it. What we have done with religion is that we provided him with reasons. We provided him with reasons why his cow died. And we provided him with an explanation as to why it did. No, thank you. And we provided him with a real idea of how he was to move on. We believe this to be a very feasible solution for not only for the individual, as they talked about in their second substantive point, not only for the individual, but as for the society as such, that you accept and you understand what's happening, you get reasons. No, thank you, man. We see that historically, they did not have any explanations for why things occurred. In the Stone Age, they did not know why that log was on fire just because lightning struck. They did not know electricity. However, as they made a religion for themselves, because we do not believe in a God, we think that man created religion, we see that when they created religion, they created answers, they created a moral frame, they put it down in writing in many religions, for example, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and then they enforced it using those moral values of society. We are not saying that man is inherently evil. We're saying that man needs help to implement the moral good. Because, no thank you, man, it might be easy to succumb to the temptation of being at times evil. For example, not returning that pen earlier. Moving on in my rebuttal, no thank you, man. They said that religious people have no right to critically think, no thank you, and yet they contradicted themselves in saying that religion is very wide and open for interpretation. We see that clearly, no thank you, sir and madam. We see that very clearly people can interpret the religions differently. We see that only within Christianity, we have Calvinism, we have Protestantism, we have Catholicism, just to name three examples. We have Puritanism, no thank you, sir. We have all these branches that clearly show us how there is not a dogma. And he brought up the example of what they call libido, which I would like to clarify is limbo, not libido. We talked about limbo and how the Pope just 10 years ago renounced the existence of limbo. However, we see that shows that religion is adoptable, that religion is changing, and that religion is actually accepting what people are saying to them, what the chief ideologies of that religion is saying, what the priest is saying, but also what the followers are saying as such. Now, they talked about how it stopped development for the individual, how the individual is forced to conform. However, we see that at the time when religion was mostly of all implemented, for example, 2,000 years ago, if we're talking about the sibling religions, or even earlier, if we're talking about Hinduism or other religions, we see that at that time, they had virtually no freedom at all. And we see that religion was a drastic change for the better for those people. We see that they actually could now treat women with respect relatively to the measures of the time. We see that they could now actually tell someone, thou shalt not kill, because there is said so in religion. We see that we have a sort of second state within religion and not only law, because at that time there were no laws, ladies and gentlemen. And they can go on saying that they were, but that was called the Dark Ages for a reason. No, thank you, man. Moving on. They talked about the fact that we have sinners, and that there will always be sinners that are punished for what they're doing. Yes, we do believe that there will be sinners in religion, but we also believe that there will be sinners if we have laws. We say that these are criminals because they do not follow the moral values that we set up in our system. We're simply talking about systems and such, and what we're saying is that religion was a very beneficial system for mankind, and has been so throughout history. No thank you, madam. We're saying that no thank you. We see, for example, in very atheistic countries, such as Japan, when they have the system of honor instead, you commit seppuku as soon as you believe you've been dishonored. That has nothing to do with religion, but yet he is considered a sinner or a fallout in his community. And that is the condition of man, not the condition of religion. Moving on to my substantive case, which we'll know in a second, man, which also connects well with what they talked about, that enforcing values and the individual's value of religion, or not value of religion, as they would have a way. We will take this POI.
Well, you're saying that the values that religion promote are good, and that values were created by individuals. But at the same time, you're saying that the individual cannot create their own set of values. So please please make up your mind and tell me how the situation looks.
Thank you, madam. What I'm saying is that the individual may well have his own individual set of values, yet we clearly see that in today's society, as well as 2,000 years ago, people were still made to conform to some kind of general set of ideas. You talked about Anders Breivik. Well, he clearly had his very own individual set of values, believing that he was a Templar, but no thank you. But we say that because he massacred 200 people at Utøya, we do not believe that in a societal level he was right, and therefore we punish him, or we make him, if you will, a sinner. Moving on to my substantive case about religion as a provider of faith and provider of answers. On my first substantive level, we see that for thousands of years, man had in essence no explanations for things that happen naturally. They had no way to understand why their child died. They had no way of explaining why all this misery was occurring to them, or then they had no way of justifying why they believed that thou shalt not kill. However, we see is that the religion came and actually enlightened them, if you will. They can almost say that they brought it closer to nirvana, if you will excuse the joke. We say that actually what religion did was move civilization forward and move the individual forward, as my first speaker said. Because it provided answers for the individual, it definitely provided a safe ground, a safe haven for that individual to move forward in his life, to accept those going against him, but also accept them for the humans that they are, and not trying to kill them with brute force, which is the might is right argument my first speaker spoke about. Yes, sir. Sorry. Yes, sir. Okay, no. Oh, wait, whatever. Moving on with my second level analysis. We see that religion was developed as a provider of answers and a provider of faith. It was essentially created by man for good reasons. We're not saying that at all times, always will religion be a good force, because man do bad things and man created religion, therefore religion might at times be bad. But we see that the basic core of religion is, for example, the Ten Commandments. It is that thou shalt not kill. We see that in Hinduism or Buddhism, they actually wipe away ants from the ground to not kill an innocent being. We do not believe this to be wrong in any way. We do not believe that just because some people, as we talked about our burden of proof, just because some people misinterpret and use religion as a tool for doing bad things, we do not believe that the religion as such is a bad thing. The same thing can be done with laws, and the same thing has been done throughout history, with or without religion being in the picture. Moving on to my third level analysis, we talk about the fact that it opened people's eyes for the reality, or that they conceded at that time. We see that at that time, people were having a hard time. People were not living the lives that they wanted to do. We see that in, for example, Saudi Arabia, people are not taking their lives at the same rate as in, for example, Sweden. We see that suicide rates are very, very, very much smaller in Saudi Arabia, even though the standards of living are much higher in Sweden. Why is this? Because people believe in something in Saudi Arabia, in contrast to Sweden, which is actually a very atheistic country. We say that what faith does, it provides you with answers, and it provides you with hope for the future and for the past, and therefore religion will always be a cause for good in this world.
Okay, now it's my pleasure to invite to present the third.
Religion was created by man for good reasons. This is what the last speaker of Team Opposition has just told us today, ladies and gentlemen. But I think that Team Opposition should pretty much make up their mind, because they once stated that people cannot have a set of moral values without religion. But at the same time, their second speaker comes and tells you that they have created this set of values on their own. They have created religion for themselves, ladies and gentlemen. Now the obvious question is, why couldn't have they created a set of rules without implicating God and hell in them? This is what we're asking you today, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in my speech I shall talk about several things. First of all, I shall talk about the mechanism of inoculation. Secondly, I will talk about the harms that have been done by religion. Thirdly, I shall analyze the benefits that were presented by team opposition today and prove to you why those benefits are not linked to religion. And fourthly, I shall analyze the history more thoroughly and make the true impact of what religion has actually done so far. Now, the mechanism of inoculation, let me go through that again. What we've been telling you, ladies and gentlemen, is that religion inoculates and stops critical thinking in the favor of irrational obedience. Why does this happen? It's because from a very, very, very young age, after birth, after you can walk on your legs, parents take you to the church, and there you hear, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. Basically, you are taught to obey authority, irregardless of what you think, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you. This is how critical thinking is inherently lowered in their psyche. Team opposition did not tackle this well. They've just told you that, well, no, thank you. There are people who interpret religion. But this is even worse, ladies and gentlemen, because this allows some people to infringe your critical thinking as they want you to think. And this is even worse because it impacts your life later on through what I shall prove to you at the second point of harms. And this leads me exactly to my second point. So, we've told you that there are harms individually speaking, ladies and gentlemen. And what are those harms? Well, since religion promotes, well, religion, especially in the past, has promoted the same set of values for thousands of years. This clearly is against progress and against human nature. For we are inherently, an entity that is self-developing. But when you have this fixed set of values, you cannot develop anymore. For as your critical thinking is infringed, you stop developing as a person, but rather you assume the values that some Bible from some 1,000 years ago has taught. And this is wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Religion has made people ignore scientific truth. During the Dark Ages, we were killing people that were saying that Earth is not the center of the universe, ladies and gentlemen. Do you see the absurdity of what we were doing because of religion? And they come here and have the guts to tell you that, you know, religion promotes education, ladies and gentlemen. That is so false.
Point, sir.
No, thank you. Now, what happens is that, you know, if you analyze the life of an individual, since he is used to obey authority from a very young age, what happens is that it has really, really important implications as he grows up. Because being enforced to listen and obey to authority, when you grow up and become older, then you will do the same thing in your personal life, ladies and gentlemen. You will not challenge what your superior says, even if it might be wrong. You will do what you are told, because this is how you grew up and developed as a person. And this is, no thank you, a different layer of analysis that we bring today in the debate, and we expect team opposition to tackle that. Now, what we've told you is that, moreover, what we've told you is that it creates irresponsibility in the sense that you're no longer aware or you're no longer the garant of your life. I mean, if you have problems, what the religion basically teaches you is, well, that's it. I mean, this is what happened. You don't have to do anything. Just be miserable in your miserable life. You don't have to change that. This is wrong, ladies and gentlemen. We should not promote that. No, thank you. We should promote the fact that people should be able to develop on their own feet. This is how life should be. Now, what the second big harm we've presented is social-wise. What happens is that if you have those many people that are indoctrinated, what happens is that you have massive clashes between religion. Because this irrational obedience has transformed into crusades, ladies and gentlemen, into wars, religious wars, just because one couldn't accept the other God. One couldn't accept the other moral values that were taught in the other religion. And this is clearly linked in the motion today. For just saying no thank you, for what team opposition has tried to infer is that religion isn't abstract, is not bad. So this is what team proposition should do. Convince you, dear judges, that religion itself is bad. No. The motion is about what have been the effects of religion. How did it impact the society, ladies and gentlemen? We've shown you how it impacted the society. It has created wars, it has killed scientists, and it has limited individual freedom and development. Now, going on to the benefits point, and here is the funniest thing ever. They come with this huge contradiction and tell you, on the one hand, people cannot develop morality, that's why we need God and religion. On the other hand, they come and tell you that people have created religion for the purpose of morality, because otherwise they couldn't enforce other people to obey those moral issues. Well, this is a clear contradiction, and you... side of yes, sir.
Do you not think that people developed religion because they needed something to actually refer to when they wanted to implement their morals?
Thank you, sir. But what you're missing the point is that you accept the fact that people are capable to develop morality. And what we are telling you is that had it not been for religion, it would have been better, because they would have developed this kind of laws. And by the way, laws were especially developed during currents such as Illuminism and rationalism, where people were actually basing their laws on pure reasoning, not on some existence of hell, ladies and gentlemen. Moreover, we told you that morality is inherently human, that the society is self-regulating from a moral point of view. I mean, if you had a community of 50 persons, and out of those 50 persons, one was thief, one was a murderer, and was a rapist, those would be excluded from the society. And as society progressed, those things would be self-regulating themselves. And this is what we've told you. And now let's get to the facts. Let's get to what has really happened in the history and see whether team proposition is indeed right or not today. What we've presented you throughout this debate is basically the mechanism of how religion works, which are universally applied, okay? But now, let me prove to you what it has really done, ladies and gentlemen. Not only did the society stagnate for hundreds of years in the dark period, in the dark ages, because of religions. Not only did we ignore any scientific and technological development because of religion. Not only did we kill in the name of religion, ladies and gentlemen, but team proposition has the guts to say that that was good. Thank you.
Now my pleasure to call the final presenting speaker, this one, I'm sorry, from the next
Yeah. Can you please start really quick? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to stand before you today because I get the chance to destroy everything that the proposition has said today. Everything, as long as the time allows. I will try to be fast to do that, so please give me your attention to be able to follow. There's a lot of points to rebuttal. I will do this by a clear structure so I don't confuse you because there's a lot to say. The structure will be about two clashes. The first one is critical thinking and whether religion promotes it or undermines it. The second one will be about the goods and benefits versus the harms that we've seen from the proposition side. So let's get right to it. On critical thinking, what they've told us is, well, people are, the religion limits this kind of promotion of knowledge. It tells people you just obey, do what we tell you, and that's it, you can't question it. Well, that's wrong, because as we've told you throughout our speeches, Islam, for example, the first word that came in the Quran was learn how to read, and it was repeated 3 times. That's the 3 words of the first Quran. Iqra, iqra, iqra means read, read, read. And so we believe that promotion of knowledge is something that, no thank you, that religion really stands for. What they said was, well, no, it doesn't, it gives you that. And then they talked, so then later they talked about how it's inherent. We've told you that people need religion to be able to read, to be able to have some moral values and such. What they've told us is, no, this is something you inherently have. This is what humans have just like that. They inherently have that as moral, their biological ability or whatever. Well, let's look at what happened before religion came, and let's see the facts, and let's not go into some assumptions. Oh, how are people really, and what studies show. Let's go to the facts. Before religions, we could see that people lived like cavemen. We could see that people did not live by the rules. We could see that people in the Arabian Peninsula buried their baby daughters alive simply because they were girls, because it was a shame. And Islam came and changed that, not some biological ability to change that. People didn't realize that it was wrong to bury a baby alive. We don't believe that is something moral. Well, to that, they told us we contradict ourselves. Let me clarify that contradiction. We say that people can't manage these moral things themselves, yet they created religion, somehow they created these values. That's a valid point of the proposition that we actually contradict ourselves. But it's not really important, because whether it's the people who did it or there was a God, it's not important what we believe in as in the religion, but whether they did it or not. No, thank you, I'll clarify this. Whether they did it or not, we got a set of values that all the people can follow. If it is actually somebody who did it, some people that actually wrote religions, and we're not going to question the belief of religion, but if it's actually people who actually did it, no thank you. We believe the majority won't be able to realize all these things, because obviously we saw how these people lived in dark ages. They didn't get any knowledge, they did these things. But there could be some intellectuals in society that thought the best way, no thank you, that thought the best way to change this is to create some kind of religion that people would believe and would follow. So there could be some intellectuals in society that set these morals and gave them to them. So it's totally possible. It's not some contradiction that cannot be fixed. They said also there's no thank you. They said that obedience, that's what religion stands for. You have to obey everything, and you're taught to obey this. Well, how is education? They said, oh, your father takes you to the church when you're little. No, thank you, stop harassing me. When they go to the church, they take you there. How is that different from going to school? Just explain to us, why is that bad to go to the church? They just simply said to us, well, they take you, no thank you, they take you and they take you to the church, and simply you become religious, and that's it. Well, just tell us why that is a bad thing. Okay, it's a valid point, they take you there, but tell us, why is that a bad thing? You didn't tell us that. So it's just the same as taking you to school. Okay, we believe in today's society that education is better, we get it in school, not from church, but they had to tell us this to clarify why that is a bad thing. Moving on, they said also that why that is a bad thing, they gave us one reason that we heard in one of their earlier speeches, was that it provides one-sided knowledge only. Well, so does every single school of thought. All the schools of thought provide one-sided knowledge, and we get all of these and we decide for ourselves what we want. They said, no, religion, you can't really decide for yourself, because in contrast to a legal system, you can basically just vote and change it. Well, in religion, you can just change your religion, take some other religion. You can just become atheist again. But what we're talking about in the motion is the people that are religious, how has this affected their lives and how it's benefited them. And we've shown you that it has benefited them well. The harms that they've brought up are not valid. So the only thing that remains within this clash is they said there's a contradiction, no thank you, there's a contradiction in religions because they provide, they're themselves misrepresentative. So they didn't want to take on themselves the burden of proof of showing us that it's actually religion that did the harm, not the misrepresentation of it. And their justification for that was, well, religion in itself is misrepresentative and it's the fault of religion. Well, we tell you no, because the legal system is the same thing. If it's misrepresentative, if it happens to be misrepresentative, you still doesn't mean that if you go criminal, if I go and kill someone and say, oh no, I read the Constitution wrong, it's just going to be, yeah, okay. No, we don't believe that the people who kill in the name of God are justified. We believe that the first, one of the commandments is, thou shalt not kill. We believe that the Quran said so many times, repeatedly throughout, don't kill. In actually, wars, which I will go through later, Quran and Islam promoted some kind of rules for war. You couldn't actually cut plants. So that's how civilized religion made people. No, thank you, sir. So now let me move on. And then they said, no, it's forced by social level. It says society forces you. It says, no, if you renounce your religion, you'll be punished somehow by the society. Well, that's the mistake of society. That's not something to blame religion for, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you. The society, if it's wrong, it's the moral values of society for some reason. But if they follow the religion as it is, which they did in many cases, it's not going to give this harms. Now, I've shown you that the critical thinking is not an issue. We've shown you in our case that before religion came to place, what we had is just a problem of, just a problem that people lived like cavemen. They didn't have any rules. If I wanted something, I'll go and kill you and get it. If I marry someone and I get a child and it happens to be a daughter, I will take her, go dig a hole and bury her there while she's crying and cover her, and she has to suffocate to death, which is a terrible thing. I had to, if I saw a person simply because of the color of his skin, I can just go and say, I own you now. You do everything I tell you. While the Quran in Islam came saying all people are as the teeth of a comb. They are equal. All people, that is children, women, black people, white people, it does not matter. So we saw some fighting of racism already in this time, which we wouldn't see before. So moving on, the harms that they told us, they said, no, thank you, sir. They said that they gave the example of Mother Teresa, where it convinces the children they're poor and therefore they should just accept that and not give them anything. Well, we see no thank you. We see that in many other religions, it's promoted to donate money. We see, for example, in Ramadan, in the holy month of the Islam religion, we see a high peak in donations to African countries, to people who are actually in need. We see the example of the Prophet Muhammad that has been set to the people, the example where he actually donated most of the sheep that he slaughtered. He donated most of it, and he only left the shoulder. And his wife said, "Oh, we wasted the whole sheep, but the shoulder." He said, "No, we wasted the shoulder because we should have donated everything." So we see that the religions promote donation to people who are poor and who are in need. And again, they said it stops progress. They didn't provide us with any analysis with that whatsoever. They gave us one example where people have been killed because they showed that the earth is not the center of the universe. Well, where in religion does it say that you should kill people that are in the center of the universe, that says something like this? We told you in our first speech that in Quran there is an explanation of how the solar system works, providing this knowledge for the people. So that is totally not okay. Also, they said the wars and crimes are okay because they're in the name of God. That's not true, because firstly, they contradicted themselves. They said if you do something in the name of God, He will forgive you, it's all right. And then they said, no, if you sin, you're going to be a sinner, so you'll be punished. So religion doesn't accept that. That's a contradiction. But even if the contradiction wasn't there, firstly, it's not in the name of God. People don't do that. Crusades and wars are not in the name of God. They're in the name of expansion of territory. And also, the sinners thing is just another issue where you're punished for what you do, and people make mistakes there. So it's totally not okay. I'm sorry I didn't have time to finish all the points. I still have points about discrimination, but I think that I've clarified that religion does more good than harm, and therefore we strongly oppose. Thank you.
Right, it's now my pleasure to invite David to present.
We have had several different points that were discussed throughout this debate, where both proposition and opposition class. These points were, above all, the morals that were promoted, or on the other side of proposition, that were not promoted or discouraged by religion. We have also talked about religion, how it takes away knowledge on the proposition side, contra how it gives knowledge on the opposition side. And also, we have talked about the exclusion of different individuals, and opposition has countered this by relating it to how the world looked before religion came. This is something that the proposition has not fully talked about, because they have talked about at points that religion could be better off if it was based on reasoning only. We have talked about how religion was, or how religion have provided benefits when it came, and how these benefits were lacking before it was actually implemented. So, first of all, the morals that were promoted by religion. The proposition said that people are not inherently evil. We believe that is true, but some people, there are individuals, we have shown the case of Breivik, that cannot really be let do what they want and apply their own critical thinking. We need some collective basis, and this is what religion has created. It has been the precursor to the justice system and to the morals that we have, which we have shown through the Ten Commandments, through extraction from the Quran and the Bible, that it says that religion is used to do good. Furthermore, religion takes away knowledge, proposition proposed. This is through that people are not able to think critically by themselves. We've shown that knowledge was gained by religion. We have shown that, for example, the first thing God said to the prophet was to read, and read anything. So why then should religion be restrictive in that case? Thirdly, the exclusion of individuals. They talked about gays and non-believers being excluded. But how was it before religion came? It was much, much worse. Before religion, people were also excluded. For example, women were much worse off, and we have throughout our case talked about how might equaled right, how you could just go and kill someone to get what you wanted. Lastly, they have not picked up on the point of misrepresentation. They have talked about people killing from the Bible, which we have clearly shown that it is not true, because in the Bible and the Quran it says otherwise. This is discouraged. So they have not understood what religion is really about. And therefore, because of morals, individuals, and the misrepresentation and the knowledge, we believe that opposition prevails. Thank you.
Now, left to themselves, good people are gonna do good things, and bad people are gonna do bad things. But if you want a good person to do evil things, well, you need to use religion, because you need an excuse. And this is what we've told you down the line, because this motion is about more harm than good. So what I'm going to prove to you by the end of my reply is that religion offers you more excuses for killing, more excuses for discrimination, and more excuses for staying poor and ignorant. And that's why you have more harm than good. So first of all, talking about critical thinking. Now, it's really common sense that when you engage in religious belief, you have less critical thinking, right? It's very hard to deny that fact. And even if they try to tell us that, well, you know, religion can be interpreted and all that, what we've told you down the line is that it's about who interprets religion. It's about that the rabbi thinks what's good for you and then tells you what's good for you. It's about the fact that the Pope declares something to be true after he kind of, believed it's true, and then forces it upon yourself. So it's really, this critical thinking stands on the side of government. It's not called the religious belief for nothing. Now, second of all, why does this matter? This matters because most of, if not all of the people who are believers do not question their belief. And therefore their belief might be good or bad, well, they're not gonna refrain from acting it out. So really going on to what this actually means. This means that the people who believe that their imam is true when he says kill all the peoples who are heretics are gonna do so. This means that people who believe that gay people are diseased when his pastor tells him so are gonna blindly discriminate against them. And this means that people who believe their religion is true believe that people who disagree with them are inherently wrong and should be coerced or convinced to join their religion. And these points were never ever being rebutted, because side opposition has always loved to live in 5,000 years ago when people were apes and yeah, well, maybe they were cavemen. But they didn't tackle this present point, that in the present, because of critical thinking, you have more discrimination, more killing, and more excuses for staying poor, right? Now, going on to this huge contradiction of human inception and how this negates their whole case. Now, they've told us that, well, first of all, people are totally incapable of, enacting moral standards. But then again, people enacted moral standards because they needed moral standards. Now, even though they kind of tried to, go past this contradiction in their third speech, we don't really get it, right? Even if some elite people can enact moral standards, why do you need religion? Because religion is not the moral standard, therefore, because people inherently, or at least some people inherently have moral standards. Religion is just a force. It's just the element of force associated with it, right? So if some people can inherently enact moral standards, why do you need to give that moral standard the ability to force other people to believe it? Why do you have to think that that moral standard is inherently true? And this is why, down the line, adding religion can only hurt morality. That's what we've told you, because morality will remain at the point in which it is enacted by those initial people. And they've not even responded to this idea of how biologically you also develop morality. So down the line, what we've told you today is that even if some cavemen might not have bashed their heads in because of religion, well, they bashed in the heads of the neighbors who didn't believe in the same God. They had more excuses for being discriminatory and killing, and they felt self-righteous about it. And therefore, we could clearly damnate religion.
Right, I'd like to thank both teams for a very interesting debate. We'll proceed the normal way. You won't get the sheets back, but I will give the results when we've had a chance to compare notes in a few minutes.